The research station hung in the void like a steel monument to arrogance, its cold corridors echoing with the efficient movements of the Vexteri scientists. These beings, tall and gray-skinned with crystalline eyes that held no warmth, had perfected the art of clinical detachment over millennia. In Laboratory 7, lead researcher Kickstor examined the latest subject with the same dispassion. He showed all specimens. Subject 7743 was small, pink-skinned, with features that seemed absurdly soft compared to hardened species they typically studied. The human infant lay strapped to a cold metal table, his tiny chest rising and falling with each breath. His brown eyes stared up at the harsh lights above, unseeing, unaware of what was about to happen. "Begin the process," Kickstor commanded, his three-fingered hand moving over the glowing controls that floated in the air before him. The baby's cries filled the chamber as tiny machines, invisible to the naked eye, flooded into his bloodstream. They moved through his body like an invading army, rewriting the very code of his existence. The Vexteri were searching for something, the key to humanity's strange ability to survive. Humans could live in places that should kill them. They could adapt when others would die. The Vexteri wanted to understand this gift, to take it for themselves. For 6 long months, they conducted their experiments. Each day brought new tests, new pain, new changes to the infant's body. They measured everything, his heartbeat, his brain waves, the way his cells divided and grew. They pushed his small body to its limits, watching, waiting for something extraordinary to emerge. But their instruments showed nothing special. The child cried and slept and grew, but he developed no superhuman strength. No special powers appeared. His mind showed no signs of telepathic abilities. To the Vexteri's cold logic, he remained frustratingly ordinary. Subject 7743 shows no significant development beyond baseline human parameters, Kickstor reported to the station commander, his voice as emotionless as a machine. The experiment has failed. I recommend termination and disposal. Commander THYX Val considered this for a moment, her crystalline eyes reflecting the station's harsh lights. Denied. Termination leaves evidence. Bodies can be found, traced back to us. The human government has been searching for their missing children. She tapped the command into her console, jettisoned the subject towards Sector 7 Gamma. The radiation storms that will erase all traces. No evidence, no problems. And so, with the cruel efficiency that defined their species, they placed the infant in a basic life support pod. It was a minimum required to keep him alive for a few days, just long enough to reach the deadly zone where the radiation would finish what they had started. They programmed the pod's simple computer with coordinates that pointed toward the Dragon Sector, a region of space that even the mighty Vexteri avoided. Ancient warnings spoke of creatures there, beings of terrible power that had existed before most civilizations learned to walk upright. But the Vexteri dismissed such tales as primitive superstition, stories told by a less advanced species to explain things they didn't understand. The pod launched from the station's waste disposal port, tumbling through the void like discarded trash. Inside, the infant cried into the darkness, his small voice unheard in the vacuum of space. The pod's simple beacon remained silent. They had disabled it to ensure no rescue would come. For 3 days, the pod drifted through the black ocean of space. It passed dead moons and asteroid fields, moving ever closer to the region marked on all star charts with warnings: Dragon Sector, approach forbidden. Finally, the pod caught the gravity well of a planet the Vexteri had never bothered to name. This world was wrapped in perpetual storms, its surface hidden beneath clouds that crackled with energy. The pod's heat shield activated automatically as it hit the atmosphere, flames engulfing its metal shell. It crashed in a clearing deep within an ancient forest, the impact cracking the pod's hull like an eggshell. The life support system, already pushed beyond its limits, failed with a dying hiss. Freezing air rushed into the cracks, and the infant's wails grew weaker as the cold seeped into his small body. His tiny hands reached toward nothing, grasping at empty air. His cries became whimpers, then barely audible gasps. The abandoned child lay dying in his broken pod, alone on an alien world, forgotten by those who created and discarded him. But something stirred in the depths of the forest. Deep underground, in caverns that had existed since the planet's birth, Ancient minds awakened from their long sleep. They felt something they hadn't experienced in centuries, a call, a frequency that resonated with the very core of their being. The Vextheri, in all their arrogance and advanced science, had not created a failure. They had created something far more significant than they could have imagined. They had created a bridge between worlds, between species, between the old powers and the new. But they would never know this. They had thrown away their greatest achievement, discarding it like broken equipment. A massive form emerged from the tree line, scales gleaming in the storm's lightning, eyes like molten gold fixed on a broken pod where a human child lay dying, unaware that his true story was just beginning. 15 years passed on Drethia Prime like whispers in the wind. The boy they named Jehun had grown tall and lean, his muscles hardened by the crushing gravity that would kill most humans within hours. His eyes, once ordinary brown, now held flecks of gold, a gift from years of exposure to draconic energy. In the Grand Cavern, Jehun practiced the forms Theraxia had taught him. His body moved through sequences that blended human martial arts with something far older. Energy rippled around his hands. Not magic, but the old power that dragons wielded instinctively. He moved like water flowing over stones, each motion precise and controlled. Your balance improves. Theraxia observed from above, her massive form coiled on a ledge that jutted from the cavern wall. Her starlight scales reflected the glow of the luminescent crystals that lit their home. But you still fight like prey trying to become predator. Maybe because I am. Jehun replied, speaking in the deep, rumbling language of dragons. His human vocal cords had long ago adapted to their speech, though it had taken years of practice and pain to master. You are neither prey nor predator. You are the bridge, Theraxia said, a phrase Jehun had heard countless times over the years. Jehun stopped his practice and looked up at the dragon who had raised him. She was enormous, her head alone larger than most ground vehicles. Yet she had been nothing but gentle with him since the day she found his broken pod. I know what I am. You've told me the story enough times. Then you know the Vextheri experiments did not fail. They simply could not measure what they had created. Before Jehun could respond, another presence filled the cavern. Elder Myungdae descended from the shadows above, his deep crimson scales marked with scars from wars fought long before humans had left their home planet. His golden eyes, ancient and knowing, fixed on a young human. The boy should know the truth, Theraxia. Myundae's voice rumbled like distant thunder. The galaxy has not forgotten us. They simply believe us extinct. He is not ready. Theraxia's tone carried a warning. He is 15 cycles old. By human measure, nearly a man. Myundae's gaze never left Jehun. Your kind searches for you, young one. The humans have not stopped looking for their lost children. Jehun's heart began to beat faster. In all his years on Drethia Prime, he had never seen another human face. The dragons were his family, his teachers, his entire world. But somewhere deep inside, he had always known he was different. There are others, other humans the Vextheri took. 17 by last count, Myungdae confirmed. Still in prison in their research facilities. Still suffering the experiments you escaped. Theraxia's growl shook loose crystals from the cavern ceiling. You fill his head with missions beyond his capability. I fill his head with purpose. Myundae's roar echoed to the vast underground chamber. We save him from death, yes. We raise him in paradise, yes. But we also isolated him from his own species. He has never seen another human face, never known his own kind. Jehun stood frozen between them, these titans who had become his family. The weight of Myundae's words pressed down on him like the planet's heavy gravity. Somewhere out there, children like him were suffering. Children the Vextheri continued to experiment on, to torture with their cold science. What are they like? Jehun asked quietly. Humans, besides me. Theraxia's massive head lowered, her expression softening in a way only those who knew dragons could recognize. Fragile, passionate, brief as candle flames, yet burning so very bright. They love and hate with equal intensity. They create beauty and wage terrible wars. They are complicated. They are survivors, Myungdae added, moving closer. Like you, they adapt. They endure. Since the Vex Theory raids, humanity has unified under something called the Terran Accord. They have become formidable, building ships and weapons, searching the stars for their stolen children. That night, Jehun stood at the cavern's entrance, watching Drethea's 3 moons rise through the perpetual storms that protected this world. The radiation fields that surrounded the planet kept all ships away, made it impossible for anyone to find this place. The dragons had chosen their sanctuary well. But now Jehun knew the truth. Somewhere beyond those storms, beyond the deadly radiation, humans lived and breathed and searched. His people, and somewhere in the cold laboratories of the Vex Theory, 17 children suffered as he once had. Children who cried in the darkness with no dragon coming to save them. Theraxia found him there, her presence a comforting warmth at his back, despite the chill wind that whipped through the entrance. "You have decided," she said. It was not a question. She knew him too well. "I can't leave them there. The other children. If there's a chance." There's always a chance. But the Vex Theory facilities are fortresses. Their weapons could kill even us. Their defenses are designed to stop armies. "Then it's good I'm small," Jehun said, a grim smile touching his lips. "And unexpected. They think I'm dead. They think all their experiments failed." Theraxia was silent for a long moment, her ancient mind weighing possibilities and dangers. When she finally spoke, her voice carried the weight of centuries. "If you do this, the galaxy will know we exist. Our isolation will end. War may come to our doorstep. Other species will seek to use us as weapons again, as they did in the old days." "I know," Jehun said simply, "and you may not survive. The Vex Theory will not simply let you take their subjects. They will fight. They will kill. I know that too." The great dragon lowered her head until her eye, large as Jehun's entire torso, was level with his face. In that golden orb, he saw his reflection, a human boy raised by dragons, belonging fully to neither world. "Then we will not let you go alone." The Vex Theory research nexus orbited a barren moon, its weapon systems designed to repel entire fleets. But they had never considered an attack from within a radiation barrier, the zone no ship could survive. Jehun clung to Theraxia's back as she burst through the barrier, her scales absorbing radiation that would turn any known spacecraft into liquid metal. Behind them, 5 more dragons followed. Myundi's crimson form cut through the deadly energy like a blade. Suhyun's jade scales shimmered with absorbed power. Hanul and Daesum flew side by side, their silver and bronze forms moving as one. Young Miho, barely 3 centuries old, brought up the rear, his excitement barely contained. The radiation should have killed them all. Instead, the dragons absorbed it, their ancient bodies converting the deadly energy into pure strength. This was why they had survived for millions of years. This was why younger races feared them. Hull breach in Sector 9. Alarm screamed through the station as Theraxia's claws tore through the outer wall, like it was paper. Kixthor, the same researcher who had discarded Jehun 15 years ago, stared at his monitors in disbelief. His crystalline eyes went wide with terror. Impossible. Nothing survives that radiation. Nothing. His words died in his throat as Theraxia's massive claw ripped through the reinforced wall of his laboratory. Metal shrieked and twisted. The vacuum of space tried to pull everything out through the hole, but Suhyun sealed it behind them with a blast of superheated air that melted the edges together. Jehun leaped from Theraxia's back, landing in a crouch as Vex Theory soldiers scrambled for their weapons. His hands blazed with golden energy, the old power channeled through his enhanced human form. The soldiers had never seen anything like him, a human who moved like a dragon, who wielded power that should be impossible for his species. "Where are the children?" Jehun demanded in their language, his voice carrying the deep harmonics of draconic speech that made the Vex Theory flinch. Kixthor's mind struggled to process what he was seeing. Subject, 7,743. You survived, but you were a failure. We discarded you. Where are the children? Jehun's shout shook the walls, power rippling through his body in visible waves. When Kixthor hesitated, Myundi's enormous head smashed through another wall, his roar shaking the entire station. Emergency lights flickered. Support beams groaned under the stress. The researcher stumbled backward, his three-fingered hands trembling. For the first time in his long life, he felt true fear. "Our laboratory 12, sublevel 7. Please don't." But Jehun was already running. His enhanced body moved faster than any normal human could, the dragon training in years in heavy gravity, making him stronger than the Vextheri had ever imagined possible. Behind him, the dragons held the station's forces at bay. They didn't need to fight. Their mere presence was enough to paralyze the soldiers with primal terror. These creatures weren't supposed to exist. They were myths, legends, extinct for 1,000,000 years. Laboratory 12 was deep in the station's heart, protected by layers of security that Jehun tore through like they were nothing. Each door that tried to stop him met his power-infused fists or Hanul's claws. Each weapon that fired at him was deflected by barriers of golden energy. When he finally reached the laboratory, his heart broke at what he saw. 17 pods lined the walls, each containing a child floating in pale blue liquid. The oldest looked perhaps 12 years, the youngest barely 5. All of them showed signs of genetic tampering. One child's skin shifted colors like chameleon. Another had eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light. A small boy's hand sparked with electricity, even in his sleep. Jehun's hands trembled with rage as he began opening the pods. The Vextheri had deemed these children promising enough to continue. They were the experiments that showed results, the subjects that produced the powers the aliens sought. The first child, a girl around 10 with eyes of pure silver, gasped awake. Liquid drained from her pod as she coughed and sputtered. Her silver eyes focused on Jehun with confusion and fear. My name is Jehun. I'm human, like you." He moved to the next pod, his fingers flying over the controls he had learned to read years ago on Drethia Prime. "I'm getting you out. All of you." As each child woke, Jehun saw his own past reflected in their confused, terrified faces. But he also saw something else. These children had abilities he could only guess at. The Vextheri had been more successful with them, or perhaps more cruel. Each bore the marks of extensive experimentation. A young boy with electricity crackling around his fingers stared at Jehun. "Are you here to hurt us more?" "No, never. I'm here to take you home." "Home?" A girl with shifting skin colors looked at him with hope and disbelief mixed together. "We have a home?" The station shuddered violently. Thraxia's voice echoed in Jehun's mind through their bond. "The Vextheri are calling for reinforcements. We must leave now." Jehun gathered the children, some able to walk, others needing to be carried by the stronger ones. "Stay close to me. Stay calm. I know this is frightening, but—" "Are those dragons?" the electric boy whispered, his eyes going wide as they entered the main corridor where Su Yun stood guard. Her jade scales gleamed under the emergency lights, and her golden eyes watched them with ancient kindness. "Yes, and they're here to save you." Jehun lifted the smallest child into his arms. "They saved me once. Now they're saving all of us." The escape was chaos. Vextheri ships swarmed from nearby outposts, their weapons firing desperately at the dragons. But in open space, against these ancient beings, they were helpless. Jehun watched from Thraxia's back, the 17 children secured on the other dragons, as Hanul breathed not fire but pure concentrated energy. 3 warships dissolved into atoms, their hulls unable to withstand power that predated modern technology by millions of years. This was the power humanity had never witnessed. This was why the dragons had hidden themselves away. They were not just strong, they were forces of nature made flesh and scale. As they fled back toward the radiation barrier, back toward Drethia Prime, Jehun held the smallest child close. The little girl buried her face in his chest, crying softly. "It's over," he whispered to her. "You're safe now." But even as he said it, he knew the truth. The galaxy had seen the dragons now. The Vextheri would not let this humiliation stand, and humanity would come looking for their children. The war had just begun. The meeting took place on the abandoned moon where the Vextheri research nexus had been. Now a twisted wreck of metal floating in orbit. Admiral Nari came with a single shuttle, as promised. No weapons, no fleet backup visible. She was shorter than Jehun expected, with sharp features and eyes that had seen too much loss. Her uniform was crisp and military precise, but her hand shook slightly as she stepped off the shuttle. When she saw the children standing behind Jehun, alive, enhanced, but alive, her composure cracked like breaking ice. "Bora?" she whispered, staring at a 10-year-old girl with eyes of pure silver. "My Bora?" The girl hesitated, memories flickering across her young face. Then recognition sparked in those silver eyes. "Amma?" The word was uncertain, as if she feared this was another Vextari trick. Mother and daughter collided in an embrace that made even Thraxia's ancient heart ache. The dragon watched from a distance, understanding this moment of reunion better than any human could know. The other children watched too, some crying silent tears, some standing stoic and unmoved. Not all had families left to return to. Some had been taken so young they barely remembered having parents at all. "Thank you," Nari said to Jehun, tears streaming down her face as she held her daughter. "Whatever you are, whoever you are, thank you. I'm human, like them." Jehun gestured to the children. "The Vextari experimented on me too, 15 years ago. They thought I was a failure and threw me away." He turned slightly, indicating Thraxia, who watched from beside the wreck station. "The dragons found me, raised me, saved me." Nari's eyes widened as she truly looked at the dragon for the first time. She had thought it was part of the station's wreckage, something metal and dead. But now she saw the rise and fall of breath, the gleam of intelligence in those golden eyes, the ancient power that radiated from every scale. They're real. The old legends were true, very real, and very angry about what the Vextari did. As if his words had summoned it, space around them suddenly blazed with warning lights. Dozens of ships dropped out of hyperspace, a Vextari armada, not just a few ships, but 50 warships, each bristling with weapons designed to crack planets open like eggs. "They can't let this stand," Jehun said grimly, stepping in front of the children. "Can't let the truth of what they did become known. Can't let us live to tell others." Nari was already shouting into her communicator. "All Terran ships, defensive positions. Protect the civilians." "Your ships won't survive their first volley," Jehun interrupted, his voice calm but certain. He had seen what Vextari weapons could do. He closed his eyes, reaching out with a resonance that connected him to dragonkind across the void. "Thraxia," he called silently. "We are here, young bridge. We have always been here." The radiation barrier around Drethia Prime didn't just shimmer. It exploded outward like a dying star. From its depths came not 6 dragons, but hundreds. Ancient beings who had slept for millennia, roused by the threat to their youngest clan member and the children he had sworn to protect. They came in every color imaginable, crimson and gold, silver and black, bronze and pearl white. Some were small, barely the size of the shuttle. Others were so massive they blotted out the stars behind them. The Vextari fleet froze. Their sensors went mad, unable to process what they were seeing. Their weapon systems locked up, targeting computers overwhelmed by the sheer number of life signs that registered as impossibly powerful. Elder Guangju led the swarm, his crystalline white scales carrying the memory of 1,000 battles fought before most current civilizations had discovered fire. When he spoke, every ship in the sector heard him, his voice transmitted directly into their communication systems through means no one understood. "You took children. You experimented on the innocent. You discarded them like broken tools." His voice was judgment itself, heavy with the weight of ages. "The young races have wondered why we vanished from the galaxy. Today, you remember why you feared us." What followed could barely be called a battle. It was a lesson in humility delivered by beings who had mastered the universe when the Vextari's ancestors were still swimming in primordial oceans. The dragons moved through space as if it were air, their bodies defying every law of physics the younger races understood. Where Vextari weapons struck, dragon scales simply absorbed the energy and redirected it back at the attackers. But Jehun saw the cost. Young Miho, eager and brave, took a nuclear blast meant for a Terran cruiser that had moved to protect the children. The dragon's scream of pain tore through Jehun's mind like a knife, and then Miho went silent, his body tumbling lifeless through the void, scales dulled and broken. Stop. Jihun roared with every ounce of draconic power he possessed, his voice amplified by grief and rage until it echoed across the entire battlefield. Impossibly, they did. Dragons and Vextheria-like paws, held by the command of the bridge between worlds. Even the mighty Guangju stopped mid-strike, his ancient eyes turning to the human boy who dared command them. More death won't undo what they did, Jihun said, tears streaming down his face as he watched Suyun gently catch Miho's body. Miho is gone. But how many more dragons fall before this ends? How many Terran ships destroyed? How many Vextheri die? He turned to face the enemy fleet directly. You want this erased? You want his shame hidden? Fine. Face trial. Face justice. Let the galaxy judge your crimes in the light, instead of hiding them in darkness. Theraxia landed beside him on the moon's surface, her ancient eyes sad with the loss of young Miho. And if they refuse young Bridge, then we let them run. And we make sure every civilization in the galaxy knows what they did. We broadcast it on every channel. We tell every species. Shame will be their prison, and they will never escape it. Commander Tiedwexval's voice came across all channels, shaking with fear and something that might have been shame. You would spare us? After everything? I would give you the choice you never gave us, Jihun said quietly. Surrender and face accountability, or flee and live as cowards forever. Choose. Silence filled the void. Then, one by one, the Vextheri ships powered down their weapons. Surrender codes transmitted across open channels. The mighty Armada, defeated not by force but by the moral weight of their own crimes, submitted to judgment. Admiral Nari stared at Jihun with something like awe, still holding her daughter close. You just stopped the war with words. No, Jihun said, his eyes on Mio's body being gently carried away by the dragons. I just gave grief a purpose instead of letting it become more violence. 6 months after what history would call the Dragon Revelation, the Galactic Concordat assembled for the trial. Representatives from 200 civilizations packed the massive station, all wanting to witness the Vextheri answer for their crimes. Jihun stood before them, no longer a lost child but the bridge, official liaison between humanity, dragons, and the wider galaxy. The 17 children stood with him, each having chosen to testify. They wore simple clothes provided by the Terran Accord, but nothing could hide what they had become. Silver eyes, shifting skin, hands that sparked with energy. They were living proof of the Vextheri's crimes. For 15 years, I believe I was a failed experiment, Jihun began, his voice steady as it echoed to the vast chamber. Something broken that deserved to be discarded. The Vextheri's greatest mistake wasn't their cruel science. It was their assumption that value could be measured by their instruments alone. The assembled representatives listened in absolute silence. Some were humanoid. Others were beings of pure energy or crystalline structures that thought in ways no human could comprehend. But all understood suffering. All understood the violation of taking children for experiments. Bora stepped forward next, her silver eyes reflecting the chamber's lights like mirrors. She stood tall despite her young age, her mother watching proudly from the human delegation. They gave me the ability to see across the electromagnetic spectrum. I can see heat, radiation, radio waves, things no human should see. Her voice hardened, losing its childish softness. They call it a promising mutation. They were excited by what they created, but they never asked if I wanted it, never considered that I was a person, not a project. One by one, the children testified. 17 voices, 17 stories of pain and transformation. The boy who could control electricity spoke of the agony as they forced his nervous system to channel power. The girl with shifting skin described the isolation of forgetting what her real face looked like. Another child, who could survive in vacuum for short periods, told of being ejected into space repeatedly to test his limits. The Vextheri Council sat in their designated area, their crystalline eyes dulled by an emotion their species had forgotten they could feel: shame. Commander Tiedwexval, who had ordered Jihun's disposal 15 years ago, stared at the floor. Kicksthor's 3-fingered hands trembled slightly. The verdict came after 3 days of testimony. It was unanimous across all 200 civilizations. reparations to the families, sanctions on Vex theory trade and technology sharing, mandatory ethics reformation overseen by the Concordat. The Vex theory would spend the next century rebuilding what their arrogance had broken, watched carefully by the galaxy they had violated. But the trial's true impact went beyond punishment. The revelation of the dragons changed everything. For millions of years, they had been legends, myths told to children, ancient warnings carved in stone on 1,000 worlds. Yet here they were, real, powerful, and willing to engage with the younger races on their own terms. Theraxia addressed the Concordat on the trial's final day, her massive form barely fitting in the chamber designed for smaller beings. We withdrew from your wars and politics because the young races sought to use us as weapons. You saw our power and wanted to control it, to aim it at your enemies. Her golden eyes swept across the assembly. Today, we return not as conquerors or tools, but as teachers. The boy Jehun has shown us that bridges can be built between the most unlikely of species, that even cruelty can birth something noble if given a chance to grow. A new organization formed from the trial's ashes, the Dragon Corps. The 17 enhanced children, trained by both humans and dragons, became explorers and peacekeepers. They were living proof that transformation, even one born of suffering, could serve good purposes. Their unique abilities, combined with dragon wisdom and human determination, made them perfect for navigating the complex politics of 200 civilizations. Admiral Nari found Jehun on the station's observation deck after everything concluded. She stood beside him, watching the stars through the massive viewport. "You're not staying with the Terran Accord full-time?" "I can't be only human anymore, Admiral." Jehun's reflection in the glass showed eyes that held both human warmth and draconic gold. "Just like I can't be only dragon. I'm the bridge. I belong everywhere and nowhere. Bora wants to join your Dragon Corps. She says..." Nari's voice caught with emotion. "She says you understand what she's been through better than I ever could, that you make her feel less alone. She'll never be alone again. None of them will." Jehun looked out at the stars, at the ships of 100 species docked at the station. The Vex theory thought they were creating weapons or discovering some secret to power. They didn't realize they were creating family instead. Nari smiled sadly. "Family born of suffering. Is that enough?" "Sometimes the strongest families are," Jehun replied. "We chose each other. That matters more than sharing blood." Months later, Jehun stood on Drethia Prime where Theraxia had found his broken pod 15 years ago. The clearing had become a memorial now. Stones arranged in draconic patterns, each one representing a life touched by the Vex theory experiments. The largest stone was for Miho, the young dragon who had given his life protecting the children. Theraxia settled beside him. Her starlight scales dimmed slightly by age, but eyes still bright with ancient wisdom. "Do you regret it? Being caught between worlds? Never fully belonging to either?" "Every day," Jehun admitted, leaning against her massive foreleg like he had done since childhood. "And not once. You taught me that belonging isn't about being one thing perfectly. It's about being many things honestly." Above them, human ships and dragon forms flew together through Drethia's perpetual storms, a sight that would have been impossible a year ago. The children of the Dragon Corps were learning to navigate both cultures, to speak both languages, to honor both heritages. Bora soared past on Suhyun's back, her silver eyes flashing with joy as she practiced aerial maneuvers. The galaxy had changed. The abandoned experiment had become its conscience. The discarded child had become its bridge. Jehun watched the electric boy, now called Juno by his adoptive dragon family, practice channeling lightning with Hanul's guidance. The power that had been forced upon him in pain was now his to control, to use for protection instead of as a weapon. The Vex theory wanted to unlock humanity's potential. Jehun said softly, "They just never imagined what that potential would become when mixed with dragon wisdom and given the freedom to choose its own path." "The universe has a sense of irony." Theraxia rumbled with amusement. "The universe has a sense of hope," Jehun corrected, watching Bora's joyful loop through the storm clouds. "It just takes the right bridge to see it."